CodeHS in their classrooms. For today's webinar, we'll be talking a little bit more about how to use CodeHS for in-person and virtual learning. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so here's our agenda for today. So we'll talk about some best practices and teaching strategies that you can use in your classrooms with using CodeHS. We'll be looking at some of the free and pro tools that you can use to help differentiate your lessons in the classroom. And then at the end, we'll look at a sample lesson and kind of show you some of the key components in it to help increase engagement and collaboration in your classroom. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. Awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead and dive into best practices and teaching strategies. So as I'm going through some of these best practices, if you've used CodeHS before in your classroom and you have a best practice that you don't see on here, definitely post it in the chat. We'd love to hear what you're doing in the classroom that's been successful, and it'll allow other teachers to get ideas from. So definitely share those in the chat too as we review these. All of these best practices can be used in a virtual and in-person setup. So I'll go ahead and dive into some of the few here. So one thing that we encourage teachers to do is to plan ahead. So going ahead and setting up your class sections before students, before school starts, and then also going through the course material before students do. So always making sure you're about a few steps ahead of the students. That way, if you encounter some bumps in the curriculum, maybe there's a challenging assignment, that way you're well prepared when the students get to it. Another great best practice is to ensure your students have clear direction on how to access their CodeHS class sections, and they are feeling comfortable with navigating through the platform. So we do have some resources that you can use for that. We have a back to school guide that provides a few activities that you can use in the classroom to get students familiar with the CodeHS platform. Some other things we love to encourage is collaboration in the classroom and reflection among students. This just allows students to work with one another and really be able to view things in different perspectives by hearing each other's reflections. And then this is depending on your class duration, but we do encourage breaks to reduce screen time. So this could be maybe 20 minutes of screen time in coding and then maybe a 5-minute break. Just another suggestion there that you can use in the classroom. I have provided some pro tips in the lower right-hand corner. These are tips for if you're a pro user. Many of these things that are listed here we'll review a little bit more in detail later on in our session, but some of them include setting up your course settings before students enroll, using our attendance tool to ensure students are logged in, using our offline activities to help increase engagement, and then also using some of the strategies in our lesson plans to increase collaboration and engagement as well. And again, we'll go over the lesson plan later on at the end of our session. All right, here's a few more strategies that you can use. So some ways on how you can differentiate your lessons to increase engagement. So in CodeHS, students are prompted to watch a video to understand the lesson topic. That video can be used in different ways. So you can play the video as a class instead of students individually watching it. We do have a slide deck that goes with the video. So as a teacher, you can use a slide deck to introduce the lesson topic. When looking at those example problems in the lesson, those can be done as a class, and they can be debugged. You can add something in there where students have to debug the example problem, and those can be done in our sandbox, and we'll demo the sandbox later in our session today as well. Some other great strategies is grouping students for specific exercises, encouraging students to share their programs as a class. This one's a great one. Have students volunteer to reteach specific topics for their peers. This is something I used to do in the classroom a lot, really having the students be the leaders in the classroom and taking charge of helping other students when they need it. And then the last one here is complete hands-on activities that connect with lessons. So a lot of our lessons that we have can be transformed in the classroom as in-person activities. So just another, great idea. These are just a little list. There are a lot more. Again, if you have any other suggestions or ideas that you do that you'd like to share, definitely post those in the chat. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is just providing feedback to students. We definitely encourage teachers to provide feedback to students. That can be done in many ways. So we do have a conversation area in CodeHS, which we will demo shortly, where you can provide feedback to students on a specific exercise or assignment. And then also grouping students to encourage collaboration. This can help with students providing feedback with each other as well. So I'll pause here. I'm going to look at the chat, see if we have any questions that came in or anything that needs to be addressed. Perfect. Looks like we're good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and dive into our next part of the webinar, which is looking at some of the tools that we have that you can use in the classroom to promote differentiation, collaboration, engagement with your students. So I'm just going to switch screens here, and I'm going to dive into the CodeHS site. Let me pull that up. All right, here we go. So one tool I wanted to just quickly highlight is our practice area. This is a great place where students can come to get, as it's named, extra practice. This can be used for enrichment for the students. This could be a place where you can tell students to go to. So if you have a student that's flying through the curriculum and they want to work on some additional assignments, this is a great area where they can do this. As a teacher, you can also assign these to your class sections. And you can copy the link and just share the link to the students so they know if there's a specific, section that you want them to work through and practice, you can have them complete it too. So another fun, an engaging way to get students to get that extra material. The next thing I wanted to showcase is our tutorials. This is fairly new. I have a lot of teachers raving about this already, but this is a great way to expand students' knowledge in the material and content that they're learning. We've built out these mini tutorials that students can go through, varying by topic. So you can see here, this one is visualizing music with JavaScript. We have a few cybersecurity tutorials as well. And then we have a few other ones based on programming language too. So these are just fun mini tutorials that students can complete in the class. Again, this can be an enrichment. This could be something fun that you do maybe on a Friday to introduce a topic. Just another great idea to increase collaboration, engagement, and differentiation in your classroom. All right, so I'm going to hand it off to Kayla. Kayla's going to dive into some of the additional tools that you may have access to depending on whether you're a free teacher or a pro teacher. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to her.
Thanks, Bianca. Okay, so I'm going to start out with some tools that are available to both free and pro teachers. What we see here is the review dashboard. So what we're going to take a look at is conversations. So here I can see that my student Noah submitted a help question. So clicking into the question, it pulls up Noah's code editor. So what I can see here is the student's code. If I click on more conversation, I can then see Noah's question. So he's saying he does not get this to turn right, but the code is not working. So I can chat back easily with the student here on this one specific exercise. So I can ask him to add comments and break down the code. That will send directly to Noah, and what he will see is a notification, a green dot or a blue dot on this inbox, and know that I have submitted a response back to him. So this is a great way to correspond with students on a specific exercise. You can do this if the student added a question, or you can just go in and you can send the student a question of your own or some feedback on their code. This is great if you have students that are virtual or in the classroom. You can just keep track of the student submissions at the bottom, go in and click on More Conversation. Another tool that we will look at that is available to free and pro teachers under More, History. So history will show you all the students' code in the code editor. So it's timestamping when the student is typing and submitting their code. I can see here that Noah has 2 timestamps. So it's likely that he may have copy and pasted this code, or he had worked on this assignment previously, and I want to reset the code back to 0 for him. So this will show you the student's code in the code editor. This is great if you have a student that's virtual and you want to make sure they're actually doing their work. So you can go in and you can see every single timestamp for that specific student. And again, that is under More History. The next thing we are going to take a look at are a few of the pro tools. So these tools are available to teachers that have a pro account. What we're going to look at is course settings. So course settings is a great place to go to pace students out, make sure they're all staying on the same track. You can go in, edit your grading settings, add block text settings, copy and paste prevention, and shuffle your quiz. So the first one we're going to take a look at is grading settings. So what grading settings is this allows you to choose how assignments are graded. So you can decide if you want to teacher grade, or if you want the assignments to automatically be graded by CodeHS auto graders. We do recommend a good mixture of both. It's important to always go in and view the student's code and give specific comments back to them, make sure they're adding comments and that they're really grasping all the content in that lesson. So you can go in and you can determine if you want it to be teacher graded or auto graded. You can also go through and do a mix of both. So if you want to teacher grade 1 assignment per lesson, you can go in and you can grade just 1 assignment. So this is what grading settings allows you to do. The next thing we're going to look at under course settings is a way to pace students and keep them all on the same track so no one's working too far ahead of each other. You can do that through access controls, which allows you to lock assignments or schedule the availability. Due dates, so this lets you assign a due date. And then is assigned settings. So is assigned, you can hide the visibility of an assignment. You can view all 3 at the same time under due dates plus access controls. So I can see here that all of my modules are currently assigned to the students. I have no due dates and everything is set to available. So my final exam, I don't want my students to know that they are going to have a final exam at the end of the course. So I'm going to toggle this to no, and on the student end, they will not see final exam. I'm also going to hide hour code and project breakout. I want those to be extra credit assignments when they finish the course. From here, what I would do is I would go in and I would lock assignments so that they can't work too far ahead of each other. I want to make sure everyone is within the same unit at one time. And I can also schedule. So if I want students to be working on Carol challenges, I can schedule this so that they can start on the 11th and that they will end this unit on the 18th. And then I can set my due date for the 18th as well. I would do the same thing with programming with Carol. This is a longer unit, so maybe I would break it up into a few lessons at one time, and then the other lessons have a little bit of a later due date. So right now, programming with Carol is set to available. Anything I do here per section, I can also do on a per student level. So you can see your list of students and you can click on a student. So for example, my student Oliver, he was not in class when I had everyone do the hour of code and then I unassigned it. So I'll assign this hour of code specifically to Oliver. Since he was out of the classroom and didn't I don't want him to have everything be on the same due date of the 18th. I'm going to extend his due date a little bit further to the 22nd. So I can differentiate what students see. If you do have students that are in person, but they're virtual for a certain period of time, you can go in and you can edit all of their settings as well. That way students are not falling too far behind or they're working too far ahead of each other. The next pro tool we are going to take a look at is from the roster page, and that is the section attendance. So section attendance will show me if my student was present, the first time they were active, their most recent activity, and then the total time that they spent on the site. If I have students that are working virtually and I just want to make sure they're logging in at class time, I can go in, I can click on attendance, and I can make sure everyone has logged in when class starts. If you had a student that was out of the classroom one day and they say they logged in, it's parent-teacher conference, you can go back and look at that specific date and you can view if the student actually logged in and if they were spending time on the site. If you are using the free version of CodeHS, a way you can make sure students were present and active is going back to that More History tab, and you can see the timestamps of when they were active that day. Another feature from the roster page would be announcements. So an announcement lets me add what I want the students to work on that day, and then it will copy over to the student's account. So I can have my students work on lesson 4 today, publish it to my section, and that way when students log in, whether they are in the classroom or virtual, they will see what they need to work on. The last pro tool that we are going to take a look at is progress. So progress is going to show me by assignment, lesson, quiz score, or time tracking where the students are at in my course. So you see this color key a lot throughout the site, and this is just a general overview of where the student is at. So if it's gray, the assignment has not been opened. Yellow, the student is currently working through the assignment. Green, the student submitted their work and they're waiting for you as the teacher to go through and grade it. Pink, you mark needs work. Magenta, they resubmitted, and then the teal that the grade has been finalized. So this is going to give you a quick overview of where the student is at. This is similar to just walking around the classroom and seeing where the student is at in the course. You can pull this up and you can see where they are. Another helpful progress tracking feature is time tracking. So time tracking will show you the amount of time the student is spending in the code editor. So if the student has maybe 5 seconds, they may have copy and pasted. If they have 7 or 8 minutes on an easier assignment, they may be struggling and need extra assistance. In that case, you can click on the assignment here. It'll pull up the student's code editor, and from there you can use the More Conversation tab to help them break down their code. For teachers using the free account, if you do want to see how your students are doing overall and what their progress is looking like, you can go in, click on your section. From this roster page, you'll see overall course progress. You can also click into the student's account. So I can click into Beyonce's account, same color key, and I can see how she is doing. So I can see her overall progress, how much has been completed. I can then go in and I can see the individual lesson progress. So I can see that Beyonce has really skipped around a lot. I marked needs work for a few assignments. So if there's something I want her to rework or work on, you can always click into it. It'll bring you back to the code editor, kind of where we started, where you can click on More Conversation. So there's a lot of good features and a lot of good ways to see how your students are doing, whether they are virtual or in the classroom. So you can utilize the free site or the pro features if you're a pro teacher. So I am going to pass this back to Bianca and take a look at the chat and help answer any questions you all have.
Awesome. Thanks, Kayla. So last two things we wanted to cover in today's webinar is our collaboration feature. It's a fairly new feature, favorited by many teachers and students. So I wanted to just walk through that. So another way that you can increase collaboration is through our sandbox. So to access the sandbox, if you're logged into CodeHS, you'll just click on sandbox in the upper left-hand corner. Teachers have access to this, and so do students. So this is what your sandbox page will look like. If you've used it before, this is where you can access any of your previous programs as well. So for today's purpose, I'm going to create a new program. I'm just going to call it Demo 10, and I'm going to create a program in Carol. All right. So once the program is created, you can turn on the collaboration feature. Again, students have access to this, so do teachers. So if you wanted to create a sandbox program where you wanted all of your students to collaborate in, for example, maybe you want to paste an assignment in here, and maybe you've changed something in here and you want the students to debug as a class, you can share the program, click on collaborate, copy the link, share it to your students. And I'm actually going to post this in the chat. So if you want to click into it, there we go. You can actually click into that link. And as students join, you'll notice an avatar appear right here, just like a Google Docs. You can see exactly who's in it. And then students can type in it at the same time. So they can provide feedback. They can collaborate on their code together and create maybe, this could be used for like an end of year project, semester project. So I can see Kayla just joined. And Kayla, do you mind typing something in there? Oh, perfect. So you can see Kayla's typing in there and adding more to the program. So this is a fun and exciting way that you can introduce a new topic or maybe wrap up a topic. So again, this is available for teachers and students. One thing to keep in mind for this one is the owner of the sandbox program needs to be in the program in order for the collaboration to work. So if I were to exit out of this page, Kayla will no longer be able to type into the code editor. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when using this feature. Awesome. All right, the last thing I wanted to do was to just dive into a CodeHS lesson plan. So whether you're on free or pro, if you're a free teacher, you have access to a limited number of lesson plans. If you're a pro teacher, you do have access to all of our lesson plans, but I did want to highlight some key components in the lesson plans that can help you in the classroom to help increase engagement, whether you're in person or virtual. So some things that we have in here that we've included are some offline handouts. These can be used electronically. You can download them, print them out. So if you don't want students on the screen one day, you can use this as a way to teach a lesson or topic. We also have some teaching strategies that we provide. So any great discussion questions that you can have with the students. Again, this doesn't mean that the students need to be on the computer. This can be off. These can be discussions that you have when they're not on the computer. Also have some suggested activities that you can do, some hands-on activities. A lot of these activities can be done in a virtual setup as well, and can be modified depending on your setup. So definitely wanted to point that as well. Again, these are great ways to increase engagement in the classroom, depending on, based on the topic and lesson that you're teaching. All right, I'm going to switch screens really quick. This kind of wraps up everything that we wanted to cover in today's webinar, but we love to just pause here and see if anyone has any questions. So if you do have any questions, definitely post them in the chat so we can help address them. So we'll pause for just a moment. Let me pull up the chat here. Yeah, if you need any additional support or help, you can reach out to us by emailing us at support@codehs.com. Also, when you're logged into CodeHS, you should see a blue message bubble in the lower right-hand corner. If you click into that, you can have a live conversation with our support team as well. So that's another way to reach out to us too. Yes, we are recording this webinar, so it will be available if you need to refer back to it again. Yeah, great question. So depending on your access, if you're a free teacher or pro, um, for the free version, you do have a trial. You have access to, I think, a limited of lesson plans. I believe it's 5, the first 5 lessons. And then for the pro, you do have access to all of them. Yes, there is a trial version of the Pro. If you are interested, definitely reach out, email us at support@codehs.com, and we can connect you to someone on our sales team to get you set up with that. Awesome. Thanks, Kayla, for posting the link to access past webinars. All right, as the questions are coming in, before I know we have a few more minutes left, but did want to just highlight some of the upcoming webinars and PD that we have available. All of this can be found at codehs.com/free PD. So we do have a webinar coming up next week on how to grade and provide feedback on CodeHS Pro. And then we have some additional PD webinars coming up too. So one is about HTML, Java, and math, and then coding in middle school. So definitely check out the free PD site on CodeHS. We offer a ton of free PD for teachers. Definitely take advantage of it. They're definitely amazing sessions to be part of. Awesome. So we'll hang out here for a few more moments. If you have questions, definitely post them in the chat. We'd be happy to address them. And then if not, you all are good to go. Thank you so much for joining. Again, we'll stick around for a few more moments in case you have questions, but thank you again for joining today.